Vanakkam. This is Hyder Ali Sayyed from Aaseevagam, United under Tamil.
And Reubon, and I agree with you totally. You see, when you talk about the language mafia, that is something that they don't. And I want you guys one day to address the languages in one of our rooms, because people don't really, not a lot of people understand the languages of the Indus Valley, like Brahmi and Sanskrit and Tamil. They don't, the Indo-Aryan, Indo-European, the Dravidian, whatever, however you want to call it. They don't understand.
The emblem of Lord Murugan. I know you're laughing at it. See, all your hunters are becoming correct, so you're very happy. I know, I can see that. So when I see you on stage, when you speak, there are two things I feel. One, I admire for your dedication. Another one is I feel sorry for you. It is because as a lone man, I keep talking. And you have, sometimes I feel like coming up in certain parts, I come up to back up. Okay, so, but there are certain varieties of ways. If I start, when I sit and talk, you also would know that how the differences between our views. Because I would love to see the similarities and learn more is what I intend to do. But now you actually know me as a person, how I would talk. Probably I can share even the different opinions about it, and we can both discuss, because since that's how to be done. So I prefer not to do that in a manner that it is kind of aggressive. I hate to do that. So, but I see that, look at this man, and always alone, and people come asking class question. You lose your temper. When I saw that another gentleman, who wears the cap, I said, okay, man, he's got someone, sit there, be with him and handle certain type of people. Yes, okay. I feel sorry sometimes, yes. But I admire your dedication, gentlemen. Absolutely, there is no doubt. There may be a lot of difference of opinions in certain specific matters, very few probably, but that can be discussed. Obviously, we love to learn from each other, right? So that's fine. But I admired your dedication, because dedication in a short term, even I might not be even worthy of having such terminology, because the term, or a longest term, consistently, you've been doing a specific work. That is called true dedication. That I admire, that I respect that. So surely I would be pretty happy, or quite happy to sit along with you and back up.
Do you know about the Mitanni Empire in North Syria and its connection to Sanskrit?
Yes, these Avesta business, yes, no, gentlemen, Hyder Ali will go to hyper at the moment we hear it. It is there, yes. In fact, I do know one of my friend in the city who I know in person, and he is Zoroastrian. He's the Avesta speaker actually. Though he poses a Muslim and all that, but that Avesta affinity, and I can always feel it. We always feel that. Yes, we are aware of that region, and for that, there are some references in the Bible that we will have to look into, Ron. Because now, the way you see it, even I see it, and like many other, we see the linguistic similarity, sometimes even color similarity, all that we see and try to see that they are our people, our ethnic, our linguistic ethnic, we say it. But if you look into the Bible, you see that, and there are different kingdoms. When the aristocrat segment or the priest segment that manipulate and swindle in the common man's life and their revenue, and people are cast out of the places, and there are specific aristocrats and priests, they were priest class people. They revolted, tried to divert the common people for their personal benefit. They were also cast out. Where did they all go? Obviously, they can't. When someone is cast out, because the casting out business is wasn't practiced in our land even just 50 years ago also. So I know exactly what it is. So that when they cast out, the way they can go is they have to go to a place which is a kind of a trading city or marketplace where it is a different ethnics are there and no one cares about each other. That is one of the places like Karagora. That is the Afghanistan we talk about. So that was the first place that all these cast out criminals, because I usually sometimes, not now, that earlier days I used to go aggressive a couple of decades ago, that when talking about this Aryan invasion, I never say invasion. I would always say that these people that they were nomads, cast out criminals, the one who swindled and the common people. And these people that when they cast out, they pass through the Khyber Palan. Now they are posing as the classy and aristocrats of different ethnic. But the same ethnic which we identify them as are the one who chased them out because of their bad deeds. They come here and now they look at the new land and adapted new things and adapted poses another superior being all the time constantly. So wherever they go, they make sure to be in a place where they can swindle the common man's work, common man's life. So there are whose things are there. In that lines, if I start speaking, I will be shitting on this actually Israelites big time. So there are, in fact, I was, because I didn't want to repeat it again, because 3 times I have done it in 2 different rooms, so don't want to go further. So maybe the next time when we meet, my point of view, I can even share it. So definitely. So these are the people that they did not, the righteous way of life, it has been described, the instruction has been given in Torah, in Bible, in Quran, in everything. Who are these people? These people are the one never wanted to follow them. These people are the one wanted to use this to manipulate the common people. That is why they find differences with the other people. That's why they keep considering themselves as supreme beings. You know what? Sorry, Ron, I think I went too far. Sorry. But we would do that, gentlemen. If you're open for all that, my view, definitely, we will do that. But please, that if I say certain things that I would expect you, and I would hope that you would cross-question me so that I myself can analyze my own point of view. Right? Please.
Yeah. So when you, I know that in the Epic of Gilgamesh in the Sumerian folklore, they talk about the Great Flood, and I know that in Manu and the fish. Are you familiar with Manu and the fish story? Manu, the fish that.
Ron, if you see Manu and fish, if you see Gilgamesh talks about an epic. Because the flood in Gilgamesh, it can even be understood about the flood which happened in Euphrates and Tigris constantly, it happened. But that is the way, that is one part. But if you speak of Tamils, you cannot describe about Tamil history without a flood.
No, where's the epic of, well, with the big fish, is it big fish? Is it Vishnu? Is that the big fish? Is that what it represents?
Oh no, I know you would go there. I am so scared. No one know that in the middle of the night. So,
all I know is that it was eight. All I know there was 8 people on the boat, and there was a fish, and the fish was the one that kind of, helped lead the end of the story. But I know that there was water, and they were in a boat, and it was 8 sages in the boat, and the guy's name was Manu.
So what we have to do is we have to go look into the Israelite history and say that how many priests they cast out, they chased out of their place for their crimes. So who brought stories along with them? That is what. Let's hit that. Let's not hit those people now. Let's hit the Tamil history. Ron, if for example, let's say that about when we start talking about Tamil history, what we say is present capital. Which is my name actually in Pandya Kingdom is Madurai, M-A-D-U-R-A-I. You can Google it. Billions always live there. It's one of the oldest city that inhabited by people for a longest period. So how we got this capital is because that is how the history starts. How we start, this is the third capital of our kingdoms. Pandya Kingdom also denotes that the first kingdom or the oldest kingdom for the ethnic, not just one of the kingdoms. In olden days, it was always mentioned only as Pandya Kingdom, that is 2000 years ago. 1 year after that, like the Chola and other terms came. So now, the first, our story starts that way. It talks about deluge constantly. That is, our first capital was in the deeper south on the ocean. That land was engulfed by the sea. After that is submerged, our capital was submerged along with the surrounding land. Because as you know that in our complete history that we do not construct a capital by the seaside, it will be in a very safe location, which means that a huge landmass has gone into the sea by the flood. So after a period, that is when that first Tamil Changa, because that goes the history of Tamil Changa. The Sangha means an association, Tamil linguistic association, where everything will be discussed. Administration, medicine, each and everything. That is the custom. So that was engulfed. The first Tamil Changa was engulfed by the sea. Then in a period of 5,000 years, gradually, from that first capital, they moved to another capital in another safest location. And in that 5,000 period, another gradually that land submerged. So once that was submerged, that was supposed to be the bigger one, that was after submerged, is when the third capital for Tamil Changa is established in which is my native place now. So that is where it is. Since then, the city is there till today. So when this history, Tamil Changa history, we've been talking about it for almost 2,000 plus years. If you speak of Tamil Changam history, if you speak of Tamil, people have to speak of Tamil literature. If you speak of Tamil literature, you have to speak of Tamil Changa. Whereas that available book from the last Sangha is about 5 plus letters. The supplementary is in another 15, 16 years like that. These books talks about the previous books, which we haven't found yet, for the second Tamil Changa, and also talks about the first Tamil Changa. Based on the number, there is a very specific numbers would be there, so that we understand that totally how many books would be. There are some other friends that they talk about it in depth. So now you tell me that deluge is not. If someone comes and tells us deluge, for them maybe that is new, not for us, because this story, even in the bottom line, a citizen would know the story. Every citizen would know about Tamil Changa history, because every citizen and to know, learn and write, learn to read and write. That's a kind of a culture, part of culture. So flood is not new to us, but one thing is that one-time flood is it's a gradual flood for a long period of time. Okay, this is the old story prior to 2,000 years. Now, within this 2,000 years, what happened is, we had a port city called Kaveri Pumpattinam. The descriptions and everything comes in various literature. That was very rich, sophisticated, based on the description I'm saying that port city in Tamil Nadu. That was engulfed by the sea by 4th century, even till today. That from that shore, that if you go by the boat by 12 o'clock noon, you actually can, for at least 5 kilometers, you can see the buildings underneath the sea. By 12 o'clock means you will be able to see through, kind of. So,
sorry, Reubon, what year is this again?
4th century, John.
BC?
4th century AD.
Okay. It's a different
Okay.
timeline.
Yeah. The prior to that is like, I think you heard that whole Tamil Changa story. You heard it many times, Chin, right? So this one is for this 2000 years. The first event was that. On the second event was in around 970 or so. There is a city called Nagapattinam, another port city, a famous port city actually. And today even that city stands still. But what happens is that based on the descriptions,
On the western coast of India or?
no, eastern coast. I belong to eastern coast right now. So in Nagapattinam, that 3/4 of the city is engulfed by the sea in 1970s. Because the book which was written like just about 100 years, 120 years prior to that, it talks about Buddhist monarchs and everything, and it talks about a Sivan temple, which is supposed to be that outside of the city, the border of that city, that now it is in the actual middle of the city. Oh, who is here? Okay. Because based on what I was speaking, Kulandai. Yes, thanks, Kulandai. I couldn't see read. If you want to come up and say what you have typed about Kaveri Pumbhattanam. Yeah, okay. Oops. Yeah, I couldn't find your message, Kulandai. Kulandai, please. Where is your message? Because here, friend of mine. Anyway, so see, these water engulfing cities is never new to us. All through our history, it's always been there. So you see that like how when the story is being spoken, that how we look into that story, you see.
It's called Kaveri Pumbhattinam or Pumbuhar. You will find the references. I'll just message Sin. I'll message Ron also. That city name, submerged city, Mr. Reubon.
Yeah, you are breaking up, Kulandai. Yeah, yes, Pumbuhar. Pumbuhar is another description for that gentleman. Kaveri Pumbhattinam and Pumbuhar. Yes, today there is Pumbuhar is there, and Kaveri Pumbhattinam is the submerged one. So we go that. Anyway, so we were talking about flood. Ron mentioned about flood and how I can. I'm just saying how I can relate with a flood based on Sangam history and our cities, our history. Throughout history, the flood is always there. So there is now.
Yeah, we have a similar story regarding a tsunami actually that destroyed and wiped out the Aduli civilization, and all the realms ended up moving up to the mountain.
What's the period, Chin?
That was why I was trying to see if it was the same time period as yours. It's hard to really say what period, but it's in the BC, it's not in the 80s. But a tsunami of such type magnitude to go all the way up the Red Sea coast would certainly have affected these certain
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's exactly, because if that has hit your region, that means that something totally worse would have hit our region. But all through our history, absolutely totally filled with this flood. But only thing we don't take is the flood. We consider it as a flood. It's not a one-time event, and it is gradually things happen. Gradually, that's one of the reasons I actually do not personally I do not accept the map what Hyder Ali has in his PTR, the submerged land, because if this huge landmass submerged, that means a disaster to the earth itself. So this must have been the group of islands, the way it has been described about Atlantis. For Atlantis, they are looking into that northern places, based on the Ice Age, there is no way islands could have been there. Islands would have been there on the other side. So there is a group of islands which I've seen a couple of pictures about Atlantis, and that makes a lot of sense. That part by part, getting submerged in a long period of time. So they keep shifting the capital from one place to another, 1, 2, 3. And our another thing is that our literature also talks about 46 divisions of kingdoms, as well as divisions of land, as well as almost 46 rivers. If you see that, my understanding.
So, Reubon, what does alam mean for you guys?
Alam means it's a tree. It's a kulande.
No, isn't there? Don't you use it for? You use it for alamara.
Yes, alamara. We use it alamara. Yeah.
What does it mean?
Alam means actually that whatever the tree resembles, that alam resembles the strength. The strength, the strength for the oldest, the strength, the one which means it's very strong.
Isn't that used for a description of a place in India as well? Alam Nadu or something like that. I remember that.
Yeah, based on that, there should have been, because that's how we name it, right? Alam Kulam. There is a place called Alam Kulam. Alam Kulam. Kulam means actually pond. Alam Kulam. Which means that pond, that region was surrounded by alam tree, alamaram. Alamaram English, alam tree. That is how, I haven't been.
Alamaram is banyan tree, right?
Banyan, yeah. That is banyan tree. Okay.
And when the tree is very ripe.
Yeah, they all would know banyan tree. It
looks like a cave itself.
Yeah. So it is like we have one, I think about more than 600 years old or something. Some say that 1,000, whatever they feel like they say.
Lord Shiva's, one of his name is also comes in the name
It's a huge one. That also denotes the oldest person who has a large number of descendants. Because when we wish people, during a wedding, we would say Alamaram Pol. We say that like a banyan tree that flourish and live. Alam plays a vital role even for health. Alum velum, we have a proverb says that alum velum pallukurdi, which means the stick from the banyan tree as well as the veil means that what do you call neem tree. So both that is our brush for a very long time, as well as inclusive of paste, right? So that is strengthen our teeth. That's what it means.
We even fought for the neem stick.
That's
for a patent also. Just to tell them.
Yeah, that's one sad story. That's these people they were.
The reason why I brought it up is. I do recall the name Alam is being in India, and I don't remember.
What does that mean in your language, Chin?
World.
World?
Yeah.
Wow,
There's a bit different if you're saying, hey, my world ended, or, the flood happened and then my world ended, right? It could easily mean
what is actually our world, Chin? Chin, I'm asking you another philosophical question. What is actually our world? If you look at it, our family is our world.
Subjective.
So that Alam world, what definitely suits that.
Right. So no, I'm going towards what you were saying, how the flood stories could have been localized, but interpreted as something that meant more than it really did. So if a writer was describing a scene such as the one that I told you about, the civilization of Adulis, and when it was wiped out by the flood, but it's not a flood.
Chin Nagpa is not supporting me on that. I've been wanting the histories like the one which is being said in your region, and even he talks about the Bible or Torah which was written in Ge'ez. I want to know the contents.
Ruben, can I give some meanings for this word alam?
Yes.
Can I give some Tamil meanings for this word alam? It is a cuddle, neer, that is water, sea, rain, a type of a tree, agayam is clouds, agalam is width, flower, etc., etc.
All these are meanings of
ulagam also. Ulagam means world.
There you go.
Yeah, Ulagam. Yes, but the meaning of the reason why. I'm sorry. The reason why,
you can actually look up for this. I'll just can I give the link? For
of course, you can send the link.
Pin it up.
But it's in Tamil, I think.
So what I was trying to say, Ruben, is the writers who survived the deluge, or in this case, the so-called tsunami, not tsunami. Yeah, it is tsunami, right? When the water just wipes you out. Yeah, the tsunami. The writers who would describe that their world, as they know it, ended there. And after 1,000 or 2,000 years of interpretation, the meaning of the word world could mean the earth, or it could mean the land, or it could mean the something, because you know how language evolves over time, and new words are introduced to describe something. So if we assume that the people on Earth at that time, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, did not know the Earth was a sphere, or how, we know what the Earth is right now, their description would be different than what it is today. So I just wanted to add that to your statement. Yeah.
But I will come to that part. That how do we know how things are? We named this earth Ulagam. It is because Ulagam comes with the term that this piece of earth, Ula Varum, let's say, first let me say that in Tamil, then I know with the English translation. Ula Varum Bhumi.
The revolving or rotating.
So when you say Ulavudal, which means something is floating around. So we name this earth Ulaham. It is because our ancestors knew that.
Wait, say that again. Alam. It's almost the same as alam.
Ulavaram means floating around.
You can say journeying also. You can say rotating.
No. It is because the Ulla.
Interpretation.
The Ulla has a very, very specific meaning. It is not about just traveling from one place to another. It is about Ulla varum penkal, Veediyile Ulla varum penkal. So I've given them that understanding. So when you Ulla, it also denotes. It talks about the way women walks around. It's like a floating. So that's why this Veedi Ulla penkal, Arasan, when the king moves around, and he need to move around in a pattern so he can absorb everything. Not in a hurry or anything, in a very specific motion that he need to move around. And based on that, they figured out that this earth is kind of floating around, is why that this name we have Ulaham.
You can also say journeying freely, something like that.
Because the moment you say the floating, because the journey is, it can be said as in straight line, with a purpose, which because there is absolutely no purpose for floating around. So journey has a purpose. From it is to need to reach like a one end to another. So we cannot use that specific term. It is like floating around, because that is exactly what Earth does, right? And that is one. And that's
right. So
no, actually, Ron has spoken about that. He's going to fix a day that based on linguistic only. That I think like now I've got. There is another person also that whatever I said, I learned from him. So mostly, so I think we needed to have a long session on the linguistics, right? So we should go forward with that. A lot of interesting things are there, Chin. Like, even I wondered, even for us.
Did you guys make a connection between Sumerian and Tamil or no?
Yes.
Yeah, that I am always making the connection, right?
No,
so in fact, like, it's the first time. What happens, Ron? That usually when I go to Chin, when I go to Ron's room, that is always like discussion, debate. Someone would be arguing with them. So when I go there. So we don't get to speak about all that. Mostly I listen and I see that. So in these rooms only, like when Ron comes, like we talk about certain specific and goals. So not in a relaxed manner. See, in my view, this is how a discussion to be done, and where that each of us learn from each other. That we keep moving on. Each of us has to be curious in learning.
Yeah,
what's wrong?
I have it in my books. I forgot what book it is, but I also break it down. I kind of touch on it in my movie. The connection of the the Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, Linear, Elamite, Aramean, and Luwian languages to the Indus Valley region. People in India, Sri Lanka, Singapore, the Indo-Aryan, Indo-Iranian, Indo-European, some people might say Dravidian, how these languages.
When you gave the list, it also explained and points out the pathetic state of us. I every time someone describes that, I feel so terribly. I feel bad. You mentioned that India, Sri Lanka. You keep moving on. And we are sitting here.
So then, why would mainstream linguistic make a difference? Like,
no, it is first
distinction between Indo-European and.
No, I'm not talking about that thing. I'm talking about the self-pity. I'm speaking in the state of self-pity that when Ron talks about all that, India and Sri Lanka.
Because when I hear the people of this particular group, I don't remember their name. I think I don't remember this group, but they talk just like an Indian person would talk, like with the same accent.
That's what you went on Indian. That is exactly Chin. That's exactly I'm speaking. You all go on with Indian, and we are sitting here in the bottom of India.
Oh no. You know when I mean Indian, it's like the way you say Africa, or the description of a place.
Yeah, you know that.
Not necessarily
That's for a long time. I'm just sharing. I'm just speaking from the angle of self-pity. Sometimes it is fun, right? So we sit here and listen like the everything you mentioned under the label India, like it all comes to the Tamil civilization, and none of you can mention it. It is because of the agreement we agreed upon, that is that 56 countries agreed to stay as an Indian Union, and so we are not an independent country. So it was an agreement. So that is just because we agreed.
Okay. So do you think that I know a lot of the Northern Indian people that I meet,
so the thing is, because of the agreement,
in terms of education and programming, like if you really ask the Northern Gujaratis, and if you just sat down and talk to them, they're like, the guys from the Southern India are programmers and they're smart and so on. I've heard them say that before. You shouldn't pity yourself as much.
That's why, Chin, even I say that to Nakfa, see Nakfa, that like that may that may be a lot of things we can say about Tamil and all that. It doesn't mean a thing because we don't have a country to own. But on the other end, from looking at you, you may not have what we have right now, but you have a country on your own. So please focus, talk to your people. That goes for every African country, I would say. People strengthen ourselves, make us the better. Because the greatest thing what you have, the worst thing what we have. That is we own for a country, but we cannot have it. But you got it already.
So
you see that? You see,
that
is Chin. Well, let me finish this in 30 seconds. See, there is a lot of problem, but you may never ever understand it because you're not in my position. That is, I cannot say, but one thing that we are, when we named our state as Tamil Nadu, which means Tamil country, no one has opposed it. You cannot find that in all the other states. Other states don't have the state name as country. Only we have it as Tamil country. So others do not have it. So the importance of having country. Yeah, importance of having country, having a pride of having a country, that probably none will know that when they have a country. So only the other one who doesn't have a country, they will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, it doesn't come quite easily. We lost countless millions of people to get their independence without the sacrifice that has to be paid in blood and resources. In many ways,
Chin, again. You lost it. Yes, you got it. We lost it. We haven't got the country. You should read about 2009, how more than 170,000 people, men, women, children, and everyone, women were mutilated, raped, killed, massacred.
Reubon.
Yes, gentlemen.
The day. Well, I wish I could do this. See, if I was you, if I was in your body and I was of your ethnicity, and I know you've been listening to what I say. If anybody can ever come up with proof in a book or a movie that connects the biblical 5 sons of Shem in the beginning, before Hebrew was even a language, before Abraham even existed, when Shem had 5 sons. If anybody can connect these 5 sons in their languages, which we know today as the Syrian language or the Syrian script, the Babylonian script, the Aramean script of ancient Syria, the script of the Elamites, and the script of the Luwians or the Luddites. Sometimes they use Hurrian or Hittites, whatever. If anybody can make that connection between these ancient languages or ancient forefathers of the sons of Shem and the people or the languages in India, that would rock the Jewish nation world in regards to the term, what is a anti-Shemite or anti-Semite? Because the term anti-Semitic or anti-Shemite is being used too loosely without people actually identifying and understanding what is a true Shemite and where is the land and territory of the ancient Shemites, the descendants of Shem, and their languages, their territories, all this stuff is existing today. But we tend to only think that you're being anti-Semitic or anti-Semitic when you're saying anything that's considered to be negative against the Jewish people. But getting back to the root of Shem, one of Noah's sons, and their languages, somebody has to bring this information forth, because we know that the Hamitic languages stemming from Africa, we can find these in Africa. We can find the languages of ancient Egypt, the languages of ancient Cush, the languages of ancient Put, the languages of ancient Canaan. And we can identify the Indo-European languages, from the British Isles and all these little islands over there in Western Europe, all the way to Norway, Finland, and Sweden, to Belarus, to Austria, Hungary, to the Finnic languages, the Ugaric languages, the Altaic languages, the languages of the steppes, the languages of the Cognates, the languages of the Turks, the languages of the Khans and the Huns, and the languages of Old Chinese, and all these different languages that exist in Asia. But there's a piece of area in Asia, we'll say we usually consider India to be part of South Asia or Asia, also the Pacific Islands, that also have a history of how their languages evolved, or what they are a mixture of, or what they come from. Even the Australian Aborigines language, even the language of the people in Papua New Guinea and Melanesia, Micronesia, Bougainville, and in all these different areas, Sri Lanka, the Andaman Islands, there is a lot of history in these people that are centered in this part of Asia, and people need to bring it out. And when you bring it out and you connect it back to these ancient languages, whether people want to call them Indo-European, Indo-Aryan, Indo-Iranian, Semitic, Cushitic, Afro-Asiatic, Nilotic, Niger-Congo, whatever, because that's what they like to do. I think that in the Abrahamic faith, if this evidence was ever brought forth, it would really be something. It would really devastate and create a huge blow to this term anti-Semitic.
Yeah, exactly, Ron. That specific term anti-Semitic, I use it pretty often on certain specific discussion. That is, because we actually had a room. We had a room about Jewish Holocaust, where I was speaking, saying that prior to the Holocaust, what made Hitler actually do all that? What was the status of the Jewish people lived in their country? So what were the reasons? While I was discussing on that, we were discussing, and I was sharing few points. Then suddenly one guy came up and said, why are you being anti-Semitic? Then I asked him, right, talking about against Jewish people, considered as anti-Semitic, right? Good. Now, based on not my book, not Tamil's book, not Tamil's literature, based on their book, they point us out and say that Tamils are Shemites. The Semitic, as per their point of view, Semitic comes from Shem, not Kemetic. So when we are Shem descendants, according to thy point of view, then I become Semitic. If anything is being said against me, becomes anti-Semitic. When the Jewish community, they face the Holocaust, that anti-Semitic view, so many people are massacred, that when exactly the same thing happened to another Semitic, then again, it's not on my view, it is on their view that I am a Semitic. My ethnic is Semitic. When our people were massacred, not 100 years ago, in 2009, and not just warriors, it was not a war between two military, it is a military massacre, children, women, and elders, almost anyone who is alive, because they were speaking a language, they belong to an ethnic. Women's breasts were cut off. That whatever the description, and Eritreans gave, exactly the same thing. Their genitals were cut off. The children were killed. What did the world do? I actually don't care about the world. What did Jewish did? Because they are the one who truly know that what it means, because they are the one who faced it. They turned the other way. So, even this is anti-Semitic. That guy went off. He left the room. So, there are things are being said wrong. So, if I put it, but the only thing is, I absolutely do not want to argue with with anyone Israelites who are black. I wanted those Israelites, the present Israelite, to sit with me and let's go for a discussion about who's who. Because the other day that you pinged me to a room, I went into the room that was full of nonsense. They were literally abusing like all African country people. And like in another, as usual, that how that old rabbi does, that he will talk when things go haywire, like he'll shut down his room and go, even if there are 100 people. The same way, there were about 40 people were there when I was in that room, which you pinged. And they just abruptly shut the room. They run. They always run. Because that is what they always did.
Well, that's because well, you know, Reubon, they pinged me to the room. I just got out the shower and I got a ping.
They wanted to humiliate you, I guess. Like that. They were.
Yeah, it says African Americans. Why are African Americans anti-Semitic? Jew hatred. And I'm like, who's pinging me to this room? And then I go in there. It's one guy in there. And after I started talking to this one guy, he said, hold on. He said, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to end this right now. And I said, what? And so I'm sitting there listening to what he's going to do. So then eight Jewish people come into the room immediately. And all 8 of them get moderator status. They get buttons and everything. And then I'm on the stage, and I'm like, okay, let me ask you, they said, Ron, why are your people anti-Semitic, and why do you kill and hate our people? And they use Crown Heights. They say, in Crown Heights is where black people are killed and our Jewish people. I said, how many Jewish people were killed in Crown Heights? And nobody said anything. I said, exactly. I said, let me ask you a question first. I said, how can I be anti-Semitic if I am Semitic? They're like, what do you mean? I said, well, we are the real children of Israel. So therefore, we cannot be anti-Semitic. They were like, prove it. I said, well, can you prove it? You always want us to prove it. Can you prove it? They always want us to prove it, but can you prove it? We can prove it, but when it comes out to them proving it, they don't have nothing to say. They always divert back to a question. So then I say, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have any hatred towards Jews? Also, so you're anti-Semitic? I said, no. I said, no. Black people are not a violent people towards other nations. We kill each other, yes. The police kills us, yes. But I said, when throughout history has black people enslaved the Jewish people? When in history has black people raped Jewish women? When in history has black people been behind the murdering and killing of thousands, millions of Jewish people? And I said, and they couldn't answer the question. I said, let's flip the story. I said, when in history has Jewish people enslaved black people in America or in the continent of Africa? When in history has Jewish people raped black women from Africa and America? When in history has Jewish people been behind the deaths and murders of millions, if not thousands of black people? They were like, never. I said, really? You guys need to do some research. You guys need to do some research. And I gave them research and facts, and I said, Google it. I said, do you think I'm pulling this out the sky? Do you think I'm just making up these words, like just randomly making these words? No, these are real things. These are real events. It's real history. I said, because you guys reject truth, and when I tell you, doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean it's true. You guys just reject truth. You want to believe a lie so much so that you continue to push this narrative, this rhetoric, and this jargon. And I said, not one of you here answered any of my questions. You want me to answer your questions all day long?
That's why this Goebbels philosophy comes in. When you keep repeating a lie, that one day that becomes the truth. That is the way they follow, right? That is Joseph.
Ruben, the lie has to be very big, though. The lie has to be big. It can't be a small lie. It has to be a big lie that you have to repeat, and then it becomes true.
Yeah, that's exactly what they've been doing for ages, right? So
Ron, let me ask you a question. Who do you consider the children of Israel in your own
Yeah, so one of the biggest cover-ups in the children of Israel are the people that are in sub-Saharan Africa. They're known as sometimes the Bantu people, the Negro, or the Niger-Congo speaking people. They all particularly have one particular predominant haplogroup. There are Israelites that are scattered to the four corners. I mentioned other ethnic groups in the Pacific Islands, Oceania, and also mentioned other groups that went to the Americas. But mainly when I talk, people that hear me, they hear.
So you consider all Africans to be?
No. So everybody in Africa is not of the same ethnic bloodline or ethnic groups or nationality. We all should know this by now. North Africa is it's like a barrage or a rainbow of ethnic groups that are all mixed together, and so we just see people that's known as the Arabs or the Berbers, white Berbers and black Berbers. But down to the DNA level, down to what makes them who they are, you will find that they are a very mixed people. They're not uniform, so they can't claim to be the indigenous people of Egypt or the indigenous people of Libya, the ancient Libyan pharaohs, because they are mixed. They are mixed with a lot of different fathers and mothers. So they are just basically the product of intermixing, no strong culture or heritage or traditions and customs, only through religion. But they've been invaders and colonizers throughout history. But when you look at the indigenous people of Africa, like the African pygmies, like the Khoisan, like the Nilots, those that are the remnants of the ancient Egyptians, yes, those people can lay claim to being the indigenous people of Africa. But when you look at other newcomers, such as Semitic Ethiopians and also the Bantu Niger-Congo people, you will see that their history goes back to the biblical Israelites of the Bible. And this is why their practices, their traditions, their customs, their oral history, even their language, even the studies of their DNA and their skulls and their skeletons and their mandible and maximal, everything that makes them who they are connects to the T to the biblical stories of the Israelites. And that's something you don't see in the Jewish people today. The Sephardic Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews, the Mizrahi Jews, the Yemeni Jews, the Georgian Jews, the Turkish Jews, the Kurdish Jews, the Iraqi Jews, the Libyan Jews, the Moroccan Jews. Just everybody's a Jew, basically. Just throwing Persian Jew, just throwing the word.
There's a difference between Jews and Israel, so there's a distinction there. But did you say you consider the Ethiopians to be children of Israel?
No, I didn't say Egyptians. No, there's four sons of Ham according to the Bible. There's Mitzrayim or Mizri or Egypt or Kemet, and then there's Canaan, which is one of the sons. You also have Put, which is modern day Libya, as you will call it in the English Bible, and then you also have Cush. So four sons, Cush. These four sons are the indigenous people of the land of Ham, aka Africa. All the other people that are in the continent of Africa are sojourners or foreigners that lived in Africa, maybe left, came back migrations, whatever. And one group of people that do have a history of not being indigenous to Africa, meaning they're not the original four sons of Ham, they are the people that's known as the Niger-Congo speaking people in sub-Saharan Africa. And uniformly, like I said, they all have a.
Can we stop using the word sub-Sahara, please?
Okay, well, let's talk about the part of Africa that's below the Maghreb and the Sahel. So when you look below the Maghreb and the Sahel, from Senegal, Gambia, Mauritania, all the way to Ethiopia, we're talking about that region on down. So just draw a straight line, but see, even then, you have to look at the fact that the most heavily populated areas of these people are in what they call Upper and Lower Guinea. Now there are some of them in Niger and Chad, and Mali, especially Mali. But when you get to these other areas like Niger and Chad and Sudan, then their numbers start to diminish because most of these people are in countries more south, like Gambia, Senegal, Mauritania, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, Angola, the Congo, all these different areas, even going to Uganda and Tanzania, and then the countries going below that, all the way to South Africa. These are predominantly people that are the population density is mostly consisted of people that have the same DNA as the African Americans, as Afro-Latinos and Afro-Caribbeans.
So there's a distinction between the Bantu speaking and the Negroes, right?
No, the Negro is usually a term that they use for the people in those countries that I named. So whenever
you have maps where they show you an area, they say this is where the Negroes live, and this is where the Guineas live, and this is where the other Congo lists live. The Europeans made a distinction between all the three names. And what we're doing right now is we're kind of conflating all of them. Because the word Negro is not a bad word itself, because if it was, it would have been like, you wouldn't have a country called Nigeria or Niger, right? Because it has its roots on the word Negro.
Well, the British named Nigeria, Nigeria. They named it that for a reason.
Yeah, but it comes from the word Negro.
Yeah, but
With Nigeria, yes, but on top of Nigeria, there's a place called Niger, right?
Yeah, but that's not. Those are not Semitic terms. Niger is not a Semitic term.
So wait, do you speak a Semitic language?
No, but I know the root of the word Niger or N-I-G.
It is a Semitic word.
Okay, what is the Semitic word in Hebrew, Niger?
Nukus.
In Hebrew? It's the word Niger in Hebrew?
Well, there is no such thing called Hebrew if you know anything about anything.
Okay, well then
let's talk Hebrew or...
let's talk about the ancient Hebrew pictographs that we're seeing in Egypt and in Israel. What is that?
The root word of negro is neger, which is from the word nugus.
Okay, so what does nigus mean?
King.
Okay, so we're talking about, but when people are using the term nigger or negro, they're not referring to us as kings. I mean, I'm sure you know that when they say that, because we know what negus means, N-E-G-U-S, but and the white man and the Latin man or whatever, Latin speakers, whatever, when they use the term nigger or Niger, it's usually a term for black.
Yes, Ron, let me intercept on niggers. Chin, there are more than one meaning for niggers. That is, one is they say that king, the term king came from the meaning elite. Elite turned out to be king in a later period. And there is also another term that is niggers for European means traders. And if you look at all these three terms, and if you know about the traders and business,
right, Ruben.
Listen.
Give me 1 minute. I'll move on.
I'll tell you later on, Ruben. Okay.
Okay. I think you got something I think in a different line.
Because in every village or town, the person who's responsible for the drum, that when he hits it, that's when trade can begin. Without him,
exactly,
the trade cannot begin.
So that is also the same project here, actually.
Yes. It later on became king, but it
later on.
They had it.
It starts from the trader. The trader that, as you see, that even till today, the businessman dress well. I cannot conduct a business in Africa if I don't suit up. Right? It doesn't matter whether I'm a billionaire or not, and no one will come for a discussion. And so the elite, the dress up, the way they dressed up, they then consider as elite dressing, sophistication, because they are the one who is selling those stuff. That they have to dress better than what they are selling. This number one. And since when how it became a Negro, that is in my point of view, how it should have been is when Negus people that we started trading with different colored people. Because first of all, the color identification, never between us, there is no way that I can say that, hey, Ron, you're a black man. Obviously Ron was so what, even you too. So that's how we're gonna go. So only when we started doing business with different people, that is after they establish a place to become a buyers. When the niggers were selling, according to them, the niggers, these guys are black. They are niggers. I don't know whether they were able to pronounce it then or not. They mostly, if you see in their language, that R based, rolling R based, the pronunciation is pretty common. So the nigger, negro, all that, negro means black, because all the traders were black. And who are the black people? Let's go in there. So these are why this West African has that is from our side historically. These are people who were building ships and sailors were from that. They were our associates. Though we might have had astronomy or waterways, we know that the shipbuilders were there. Their descendants still live in our lands in another name called Marakaya. And in fact, if you Google that Sri Lankan Moors Association, you will get, even till today, they are sitting there. In fact, recently they released a movie in the name of Marakaya, because our term for Moors is Marakaya. So in that, they've been our associate for thousands of years. So along with that, both of us looks the same, and thanks, Haider. So look the same. When we met these white people, they said Negus means black and nigger black. And that is why once, Ron, you were saying that Negroitic, and I said oh my God, because let's start feeling sorry for them, because these are the people, when they were holding these universities, they started using terminologies which we personally do not like and not accept. They happen to have it.
So then I think you solved the mystery of that, because the dwellers of West Africa, especially the coastal area, were not traders. They were agriculturists.
Yeah, they're agricultural.
The ones who lived in the Sahara were the traders.
Exactly.
So that's where the term Negro entered the Portuguese vocabulary.
I have a word to give to Reubon. Reubon, how do you see Nagar?
Actually, yes, Kudanday, they are speaking their part of knowledge, gentlemen. And but when you see the references from Greek documents or any of the oldest documents, the trade routes were defined and found based on the knowledge of waterways. And you know how the waterways is based on the turtle's water route. And since ancient time,
even we have in our tradition,
yes,
if you remember, the turtle's route. I have one tiny question.
No. We are talking about Tamil ethnics, that how they were good with waterways. But I am very strongly that support the Western region as partners. And there are two sect of partners. I would say one is the region of Eritrea. Another one is the Moors region, West Africa, where they were good at building ships, because they exactly the same people, their descendants, they are still today, they are living in our land as Marakayas. Their ancestry goes with the West Africa. They were always been associated with the Chola kings for thousands of years, and along with the Pandya kings and Chera for shipbuilding, to travel long overseas. Right. So we have to respect
Reubon,
that.
getting back to the children of Israel and what Ron was saying, was he saying that only the Bantus and the so-called, I think he used the word Negro, were the people who are considered the children of Israel, or I still didn't get a clarity out of that one.
That's not what I said. Because I said earlier that the main one that I talk about, of course, because I'm black, or African American or Negro, is I stress the point about the people in Africa that are the Israelites that people are overlooking, but the Israelites were also scattered to the four corners, but they are not the people we see today that's calling themselves Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews, the Sephardic Jews, the Mizrahi, the Yemeni Jews, the Georgian Jews, the Romanite Jews. I can just keep going on and on. Those people are converts. So the real indigenous ethnic Jews are still scattered to the four corners, and they are not, usually they're labeled indigenous or Indian or some other byword, so that you don't know who they are. Remember the Europeans, they're the ones that made the maps. The reason why they called Sri Lanka Ceylon. Then they changed it, and somebody changed it to Sri Lanka. That's the reason why you see the word the Niger River. I mean, the Bantu people didn't call it the Niger River. It probably was the Berbers or it was the Europeans, because if you look at the ancient maps of Africa, it's usually done by the Europeans. And the word Niger in Latin means black. In the Berber languages, there's a word for river, and it corresponds to what some people say is the Niger River, which flows through Guinea, through Mali, and then goes all the way down to Nigeria. So,
but the Bantus didn't live in the area where the Niger River is, though.
No. Well, they got there, but they weren't there originally. They weren't there. The Berbers were there. The people that are in North Africa, like the Tuaregs and these guys, they were there first before the Black Arabs got there. But the Israelites, when they dwelled in the land of Africa and Egypt, I doubt that they were also hanging out in modern day Nigeria or Mali or Guinea. But even though the river existed, it was there. Just maybe nobody was living there at the time. The only river they were familiar with was probably the Nile River and how the Nile River split. So when many people about to descent talk about the area that they left, they will say that they left Canaan or Canaan, which is the land of Canaan, which was the land that God gave to the Israelites. And if they mention anything in regards to Israel, not Israel, but Egypt, they're either going to say Mizri or they're going to say Kimi or Kemet, something in regards to the ancient languages that was spoken, either the Semitic tongue or the Hamitic tongue. Because ancient Kemet was what the Egyptians called their land, but the Hebrews called ancient Egypt Mizraim, or in Arabic is Mizri, or in some of the Bantu dialects of Swahili, they say also Mizri as well, which is basically a shoot off the word Mitzrayim, which is the Hebrew word for Egypt, one of the sons of Ham.
What would you say about Berbers, Ron?
Well, Berbers is a term used for the people in North Africa, whether they're white Berbers or black Berbers. Different tribes like the Kabyle and the Mozabites and the Tuaregs and different tribes you see from Morocco all the way to Libya and Tunisia and Algeria. They just, that's what they call them, the Berber tribes. North African Berber.
Berbers, the linguistic tribe that I have.
They're linguistic tribe as well. Yes, they speak. They speak the ancient Afro-Asiatic. It's called Afro-Asiatic.
It's an Afro-Asiatic language, but the original language of the Tuaregs, the Black Tuaregs, is the closest thing to the original language of the Libyco Berber people or the Libyan people that existed in BC times during the Egyptian dynasties. So when you look at the ancient Libyan pharaohs, I forgot what dynasty. It might have been the 23rd or 24th or 25th dynasty. The Libyan pharaohs from the Fezzan and the Cyrene area over in that area to the west. These Libyan pharaohs were black. If you look at their depictions on stone, and these ancient black Libyans, their descendants are still in North Africa. And their languages, you try to decipher them, you will have to go to the Tuareg languages to try to make some understanding of where these languages come from. Same reason why if you wanted to look at ancient Samaria or ancient Elamite or ancient Assyria Babylonian languages, you might need to go into India to start to find out where these ancient languages have they evolved into these languages today, including Sanskrit and Tamil and Brahmi and all these other languages.
Even now, Ron, even now, if you search in YouTube, if you mention any of these countries, whether it's Berber or Cameroonian, Korea, then once you type that in YouTube and then Tamil, you will find videos where people talk about the linguistic similarity between Tamil and theirs. So you will find a lot of videos.
That's in northern Cameroon, yes.
Yeah, but the homeland of the Bantu-speaking language.
I've got a problem. That is, I'm sorry to say that time is 3:23 midnight now. So is it okay? I take a break. I will catch up with you all again later.
Sure.
So it's
what time is it now?
3:23. My wife will be wondering, where is he?
You're burning the midnight oil. Well, that's basically what you're doing.
Yes, I'm doing that. I really apologize, gentlemen. Right, I would love to be here, but I really gotta go like that, right? Okay, thank you, Chin, Kulanday, Ron, Kavyan, Krishnan, Sairam, thank you very much, Baya, thank you very much for being here, Raj Dharma, Sonia, thank you, Mo, thank you very much.
And, thank you, Reubon.
See you all later. Okay, thank you all. Bye. Good night, Hyderabad.
Prolonging due to four basically regime disguised as Muslim world. Satyugam possible only through straight path of